Istanbul is a city of 1,000 domes and minarets. It is a city that is the historic gateway between Europe and Asia. A good place to begin any visit to Istanbul is Hagia Sophia in Istanbul's historic district. Hagia Sophia was built by Roman Emperor Justinian. It was consecrated December 26th of 537 AD. The apparent lack of support for the dome inside made Byzantines gasp in amazement when they first entered. In 1453, just before Mehmet the Conqueror entered Hagia Sophia to claim the world's greatest church for Islam, he sprinkled earth on his head in a gesture of humility. They knew he was coming, so the beautiful mosaics were whitewashed. Surprisingly, they were not rediscovered until the 1930s, when the mosque was converted into a museum. Facing Hagia Sophia, the Blue Mosque is a triumph of harmony and elegance. It was built by Sultan Mehmet I 1,000 years after Hagia Sophia. His ambition was to build a mosque that would rival and even surpass Hagia Sophia. It is one of the few mosques of the world that has 6 minarets. The legend says the Sultan called for golden minarets. The architect, however, thought he meant 6 minarets, as the words for gold and 6 are similar in Turkish. The bluish-neck tiles inside inspired the title of the Blue Mosque. This is an active mosque, and the faithful pray here 5 times a day. On Fridays, the imam or teacher climbs the gold-decorated stairway to the pulpit to give his sermon while the stained glass windows above add warmth and light to his meaning. The Hippodrome is adjacent to the Blue Mosque. It was originally built in the 2nd century AD, but it is now a park. The obelisk was carved in Egypt around 1500 BC. Emperor Theodosius brought it here in 390 AD, a monumental feat of transportation for that time. Across the Hippodrome is the most lavish private residence of the Ottoman Empire, the Palace of Ibrahim Pasha, Suleiman's Grand Vizier. Another fine residence situated between Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque is a 19th century mansion that once belonged to a general in the Sultan's army. In recent years, it fell into disrepair, but was rebuilt by the Turkish Touring Automobile Association and turned into a marvelous bed and breakfast inn. In the back is a delightful garden where we can rest tired feet and enjoy a delightful bite to eat before visiting Topkapi Museum. It is just a 10-minute walk to Topkapi, the residence of the sultans for 3 centuries. Construction of Topkapi began in 1453 to house Mehmet the Conqueror. Eventually, the palace grew so large that over 50,000 people lived and worked here. The palace is divided into 3 sections. Here, the outer palace, the inner palace, and the harem. The harem was the forbidden palace, very much like the private apartments of Buckingham Palace or our White House. Here in the Imperial Hall, built in the 16th century, the Sultan presided over gatherings with members of the harem. The solid gold throne was a gift from Persia in the 18th century. The Queen Mother was ruler of the harem. She owned large landed estates and controlled them through the black eunuch servants. The chief black eunuch, however, represented the Sultan in running the harem. He was the 3rd most powerful official in the empire. The sweetmeats room is certainly one of the most lovely rooms in the harem. In the 4th court, in the rear of Topkapi, we find several pavilions and a patio affording a wonderful view of Istanbul and the Golden Horn. The entrance to the Grand Bazaar is just a few blocks from Topkapi. It all started as a warehouse during the days of Mehmet the Conqueror. It quickly became the commercial hub of Istanbul with 4,000 shops, including a large number of gold shops. The rule of thumb is that most items can be purchased at about half of the asking price. The bazaar is really a community within a community. In addition to all the shops, there are also mosques, banks, police stations, and restaurants. For more shopping, we will climb aboard a restored turn-of-the-century tram for a ride from Taksim Square along Istiklal Caddesi, or Independence Street. A tasty simit ring will make our ride all the more enjoyable. Istiklal Caddesi has also been called the Grand Rue des Para, a street with all the smart shops. Further on, we discover that the street is also a popular setting for Turkish film producers. A few minutes ago, most pedestrians were stopped from passing in front of the camera by the film company while the director plans his next shot. Inside a turn-of-the-century restaurant, wardrobe people are making sure everything is proper. Türkan Şoray, Turkey's most famous actress, checks her makeup for the next scene of For a Love, a story based loosely on Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. It takes forever to shoot one scene as everything must be just right. Finally, all is ready. Enter actor Faruk Pikar, Türkan Şoray's leading man. Turkey, we are told, has a thriving movie industry. They produce over 200 feature films per year. With the scene completed, the cast and crew take a break. Some catch the tram for Çiçek Pashaza, or the Flower Passage. It was in the 1980s that this courtyard, containing taverns and restaurants, was restored and roofed over. It is now a popular place to come with friends for a refreshing beverage or a bite to eat. Another popular setting for Turkish films is the nearby Pır Palace Hotel, constructed in 1892 for the sole use of passengers on the Orient Express train. It was built by Georges Nagelmakers, the Belgian entrepreneur who founded the Orient Express. Over the years, its famous guests have included movie star Greta Garbo, Jacqueline Kennedy, World War I spy Mata Hari, and the writer Agatha Christie. While visiting the hotel, we'll certainly want to enjoy a tempting Turkish pastry in the hotel's famous pastry shop. The cakes look so delicious, it's difficult to make a decision. Hassan and Afir, however, have thrown caution to the wind and decided to indulge themselves with a tempting slice of cream and fruit cake. After our pastry, we discover another of the hotel's attractions. One of the first electric-powered elevators in the world to be installed in a hotel. It is still in operation today. Let's take it up to the third floor to visit Mustafa Kemal's suite. He stayed here quite often before distinguishing himself in World War I's Gallipoli campaign. It was after that campaign that he went on to become known as Ataturk as he guided Turkey into the 20th century as its first president. His suite is now a museum. On the next floor above is room 411, where in 1932, Agatha Christie wrote Murder on the Orient Express. Agatha Christie was born in England in 1890. During her lifetime, she wrote 66 novels. 2 years before she died at the age of 86, she saw Murder on the Orient Express made into a successful film. During her stay in Istanbul, Agatha Christie must have enjoyed the opulent splendor of Dolmabahce Palace. The palace was constructed over a 13-year period in the middle of the 19th century. Its construction nearly bankrupted the state, but Sultan Abdul Merset wanted to compete with his European rivals. Facing the Bosphorus, the palace facade is over a quarter of a mile long. The lovely gardens of Dolmabahce were designed by a German landscape gardener. Inside, we quickly discovered that no expense was spared. The Blue Room is still used today for state receptions. The public apartments are located at the top of the grand staircase. They are particularly lovely with carved wood paneling and ornate crystal chandeliers. The pool room features a marble pool and fountain. Above is an elaborate carved ceiling. Finally, we visit the regal audience room of the Sultan. Just south of Dolmabahce, the 14th century Galata Tower offers us a fabulous view of Istanbul's skyline. Below is the Golden Horn, which was always considered to be the private lake of the Sultans. Beyond, we enjoy a view of the historic district and the Blue Mosque with its 6 minarets. Directly below is the ferryboat landing. When the painters are finished, we will leave for the Prince's Islands in the Sea of Marmara, south of Istanbul. As our ferryboat heads out of the Golden Horn into the Bosphorus, boat traffic is heavy. Boat traffic has always been heavy here for centuries. Even in the 9th century, this city had a population of 1 million. Today, the population is well over 10 times that amount. The Prince's Islands are about 12 miles or a 50-minute ferryboat ride from Istanbul in the Sea of Marmara. Of all 9 Prince's Islands, Kutahya Island is the largest. Like the other islands, no cars except for emergency vehicles are allowed. The only good way to get around is by bicycle or horse and carriage. For a modest price, we can take an hour horse and carriage tour along the coastal road around the island. During the 19th century, Istanbul's business community of Greeks, Jews, and Armenians favored the islands as summer resorts. Like today, they are an excellent place to come to escape the oppressive summer heat of the city. Kutahya Island is a showcase of late 19th century residential architecture. It is interesting to note that there is no fresh water on the island. It must be brought in from the mainland, including water for swimming pools. There are also beautiful condominiums here on the island. Mrs. Dembelulu lives up there in the 3rd floor condominium. Although born in Turkey, for many years Mrs. Dembelulu lived in Battle Creek, Michigan. She decided to retire here in Turkey, however, as the cost of living is much less than it is in the United States. We can see that she is a wonderful cook. Mrs. Dembelulu is serving her niece, Mina, her luncheon specialty, a delicious cheese and minced meat börek. We will now leave Mrs. Dembelulu and return to the mainland. Leaving Istanbul by car for the Asian part of Turkey is now much easier than it was when I first visited Istanbul in the 1960s. The first of two bridges linking Europe with Asia was completed in 1973. It has the longest suspension span in Europe and is the fourth largest in the world. Çanakkale is situated in the Straits of the Dardanelles. This delightful town became an active trading post and transit point from Europe in the middle of the 15th century. Today, the promenade by the harbor is where folks of Çanakkale come to meet with their friends for a walk or a relaxing chat on a park bench overlooking the Dardanelles. We will catch a ferry boat here to take us across the Dardanelles to visit the site of World War I's Gallipoli campaign. The Dardanelles Straits are about a mile wide at this point. In 1915, after 9 months of battle against the Turks, the Allied fleet was unsuccessful in forcing a passage through the Dardanelles to capture Istanbul. It was here that Mustafa Kemal, later named Ataturk the father of modern Turkey, distinguished himself with great resolve and brilliant tactics. "There's no difference between the Johnnies and Mehmets to us," wrote Ataturk. "Wipe away your tears. Your sons are in peace after having lost their lives on this land. They have become our sons as well." From Çanakkale, we will leisurely explore Turkey's Aegean coast all the way to Bodrum. Just a short drive south of Çanakkale, however, is the site of ancient Troy. The wooden horse, the symbol of Troy's downfall, was built in 1975 as a tourist attraction. We can't visit Troy without hearing of Heinrich Schliemann. As a young man in 1872, he began looking for Troy, using Homer's Iliad as a guide. He dug here until he discovered first a necklace, and then other gold and silver objects. He called it Agamemnon's treasure. There are 9 cities built on top of each other. The 6th city is the Troy, which engaged in the 10-year Trojan War against the Greeks who wished to recapture the beautiful Helen. During battle, Homer tells us, Achilles killed Hector, the son of Priam, king of Troy. The painting shows Achilles triumphantly dragging Hector's body behind his chariot around the walls of Troy. From Troy, we will next take a side trip east to the town of Kutahya. Kutahya is Turkey's most important ceramic center. Hand-painted ceramic tiles are found everywhere, from park fountains to drinking fountains. Kutahya Porcelain is one of the largest manufacturers in the community. The company is well known for high-quality porcelain dinnerware. The use of stencils on dinnerware create distinctive patterns while keeping the cost affordable. Once the stencils are applied, each plate will be covered with a glaze and fired for the last time at nearly 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. In another room, artists are busy painting plates and tiles. Each artist can paint 3 plates like this with a complex pattern per day. Although the town has been known for porcelain products since the 17th century, Kutahya Porcelains was started in 1976. Today they employ over 800 people. High-quality clay is essential for top-quality ceramics. There is an excellent source near Kutahya. In addition to clay, porcelain is also composed of felspar and quartz. It is in the showroom, however, that we have an opportunity to admire a good representation of porcelain products produced by Kutahya. Although this china service is all hand-painted, it is still affordable. A place setting for 4 costs about $80. Back along the Aegean coast, we will next visit the Hellenistic city of Pergamum. The Theater of Pergamon was built into a hillside to preserve building space on the Acropolis for more important buildings such as the Great Library with over 200,000 volumes. It rivaled the library in Alexandria, Egypt. Much of what was built here did not survive, but what did has been beautifully restored. Down there, on the outskirts of the modern town of Bergama, is the Bergama Art Center and Onyx Factory. The first step in preparing an alabaster egg is to cut a rectangular piece from a large block of alabaster, which here is also called onyx marble. Alabaster is a fine-grained, slightly translucent variety of gypsum. It resembles true marble but is much softer. We can see how easy it is for the artist to shape it on a lathe without even shattering it. Many museums in Turkey have Roman vases and statuettes that were carved from this material. Its delicately shaded coloring makes anything carved from it particularly lovely once it is polished. We can purchase alabaster eggs in the gift shop and also an astounding number of other alabaster items that most shoppers find tempting. They range from fountains to vases, which are made in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. Our suitcases immediately gained 15 pounds. In the next room, an artist is very carefully assembling pieces of sterling silver into grids that then become the building blocks of his imagination. As we can see, the end results are very pleasing. He told us that he is asking $10,000 for the sterling silver sailboat he recently completed. Heading south from Bergama, our bus next brings us to Ephesus. Ephesus is certainly Turkey's finest archaeological site. A great deal of careful restoration has been going on here for many years. For us as visitors, it is truly a step back in time. The most impressive restored structure is the facade of the Library of Celsius. Construction of the library began in 114 AD during the imperial age at the time of the Roman Emperor Hadrian. Nearby is the Temple of Hadrian. It was built 24 years later and is equally impressive, but on a much smaller scale. The ruin of the Basilica of St. John is very close to Ephesus. It is believed that after the crucifixion, John brought Mary to Ephesus, wrote his Gospel, and was buried here. In the 6th century, Roman Emperor Justinian erected a magnificent church above his tomb. St. Mary also lived all her life here. In the 18th century, a German woman had visions of Mary's home near Ephesus. Following her description, the foundation of this old house was discovered. In 1967, Pope Paul VI visited the site to confirm the legend. Mary is also a popular saint among the Muslim Turks. Hierapolis is located east of Ephesus. Legend says that the Apostle Philip settled here with his family and founded an early Christian community. Next to Hierapolis is the Cotton Castle, or Pamukkale. Taking a good picture can sometimes require as much form and concentration as a good golf shot. The water contains calcium carbonate, which over the centuries has precipitated out of the water to form the mound overlooking the valley. The mineral water is supposed to be very good for arthritis and skin conditions. The next morning, we arrive at the antique city of Aphrodisias, a town famous for its school of sculpture. Many fine examples can be enjoyed in the small museum here. The site of Aphrodisias was first unearthed in the 1960s with aid of the National Geographic Society. The Tetrapylon, or Temple with Four Doors, was painstakingly reconstructed in the 1980s. It was thought to be a monument along the main street of Aphrodisias. Further on is one of the largest and best preserved stadiums in the entire Mediterranean area. Turning south, we next arrive at one of my favorite towns in Turkey, Bodrum, the home of Herodotus, the father of history. Focal point of the community is the Crusader Castle of St. Peter, built by the Knights of St. John in the 15th century. The castle is now a museum for all to enjoy. The staff often dress in period costume to make the experience more meaningful for the visitor. A good example of that is to be found here in the great banquet hall, decorated much as it was at the time of the Knights of St. John. The newest and perhaps most creative display of all is in the Hall of the Carian Princes. The young woman wears clothes and jewelry worn by the Carian princes in the 4th century BC. During construction in 1989, an ancient tomb was discovered on the edge of Bodrum. Inside was a well-preserved skeleton of a woman about 40 years of age, along with numerous pieces of gold jewelry. Examining the sarcophagus of the Carian princes is archaeologist Bahadur Birakia and his wife. He made the initial discovery. A plaster cast of the prince's head was then sent to the Manchester Medical School in England for reconstruction. This is how they did it. Step by step, layers of clay were built up to represent muscle, tissue, and skin. Next, we will certainly want to do a bit of shopping in Bodrum. We might even be tempted to purchase a specialty of Bodrum, handmade sandals. They cost about $18, and we can even have them personally fitted. Bodrum is the yachting center of Turkey. It is here that we will board the MS Ipek for a 7-day blue water cruise along the Mediterranean coastline. The Ipek, a boardroom ketch, accommodates 13 guests and a crew of 3. Each of the 7 comfortable cabins has its own bath. The Ipek was constructed in 1992 and is 80 feet long and 20 feet wide. Our first port of call will be Marmaris, which is about a day's sail from Bodrum. One of the great pleasures of a blue water cruise is to explore bays and coves along the way. That afternoon, the captain decided to do just that. Before the boat could be secured with a line to shore, the first guest was over the side into the refreshing, crystal-clear water of the Mediterranean. It is the middle of May and the temperature is perfect. On shore, the rhododendron are in full bloom. That afternoon, a fisherman with his family came alongside to sell the captain fish for our evening meal. The captain chose wisely, and the cook worked his magic to make a marvelous fish supper for all served on the pooper's stern deck. After supper, we got underway again, as Marmaris is just ahead. While some of us head to town for shopping, others head to the shipyard to see how the Ipek was constructed. We were told that it takes about 3 months to build just the rib section of an 80-foot ketch. The ribs and the planking are made from red pine. The entire boat takes about a year to complete and costs approximately $100,000 US, which is surprisingly inexpensive for a boat of that size. Most orders come from Greece. It appears that the most difficult aspect of filling an order for a goulet, as they're called here, is not building it, but moving it from the boatyard to the launching ramp. Back aboard, the captain turns the Ipek toward Delian. Meanwhile, we relax under the sails while enjoying warm sunshine, Mediterranean breezes, and for some, a good book. The town of Delian and the Lycian tombs are located a couple of miles up a small river from our anchoring point near the river's mouth. Local small boat owners each day run a water taxi service to the community. One of the surprise attractions near the town of Delian is the mud bath, which is supposed to be good for ailments that affect the skin. At midday, when the sun is hot, a mud bath can be dangerous. It looks like one bather applied just a little too much mud in the sun and has become petrified. The tombs of the Lycian kings are located on the opposite shore of the river from the town of Delian. They were carved out of living rock to resemble the earthly homes of their occupants. How they managed such engineering feats 2,000 years ago is a question of much speculation. The second portion of our blue water cruise will take us from here to Antalya. We will, however, make one stop along the way to see the Church of St. Nicholas in Demre. We will sail most of the way, but when entering port the sails come down and we resort to the 280 horsepower Caterpillar diesel engine. The spacious lounge of the APEC is a great place to retreat from the hot sun at midday. St. Nicholas was born near here in the town of Petra about 300 AD. As a bishop, he was known to drop bags of coins down the chimneys of homes of village girls who had no dowry. The gift from heaven would then allow them to marry. The Church of St. Nicholas was first built here in the 3rd century. Over the years, it has been restored several times. A new restoration is underway today. His fame as a saint grew so much that in the 11th century, a raiding party from Italy stole his mortal remains from this church. Our next destination is the charming town of Antalya. In 1984, restoration of the harbor earned the town a Golden Apple Award from the World Federation of Travel Writers. At the beginning of the 13th century, the Seljuk Turks took the town from the Byzantines and gave the city its symbol, the grooved minaret. Because of the increasing popularity of sneakers, it seems that shoe-shine men have to work extra hard these days. Location, of course, is everything, and his location is perfect. The entrance to the Triumphal Arch, built in 130 AD to honor Roman Emperor Hadrian's visit to the community. The arch leads us to Old Town, where we also find the Batur family home. Mr. Batur is an excellent gardener, and the entire family takes special pride in the roses he grows. Their family, we are told, has lived in this home for more than 100 years. Mrs. Batur makes excellent Turkish coffee. The only problem is that it is bound to keep you awake for at least 3 days. Meanwhile, One, who is 10, is engrossed in a children's television program. Mrs. Batur and her mother proudly tell us that Ataturk spent the night here in the 1930s while visiting the community. One is in the 5th grade. In the morning, she will join the other students as they head for school. All children in Turkey wear school uniforms. They are well disciplined and must line up by class for announcements in the schoolyard before entering their classrooms. After class, about 3 in the afternoon, many school children love to visit the Duden River waterfalls. The park is located about 6 miles north of the city center. From a cave behind the falling water, we enjoy a spectacular view of one of the many waterfalls. The lovely setting was recently the backdrop for the filming of a Turkish version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which makes the park all the more popular with the children. We will next travel through fertile farmland from Antalya to Antakya, which was once known as Antioch, the 3rd largest city in the Roman Empire. Most of the farmland around here is owned by one family, so planting tobacco is a family affair. The tobacco plants were started early this spring in greenhouses. Behind the John Deere tractor, the women place the young plants between the discs, which deposits them in the soil. Evidently, the government will purchase the tobacco crop for the state-owned cigarette factory. Further on, are more than 400 state-owned beehives, which are trucked into citrus orchards when they are in bloom. Smoke makes the bees docile so the trays of honey can be removed. The queens, we are told, are imported from Kazakhstan. My friend and assistant Mark Mayer finds the courage to try the honey and discovers it is very tasty. In the next valley, greenhouses stretch as far as the eye can see. Agriculture employs half the labor force in Turkey and accounts for 20% of the gross national product. On the other side of the valley, we're invited to a country picnic. A mother and her 2 daughters are preparing 2 kinds of bread for us from scratch. They are filled with cheese, while others are filled with a spicy ground lamb. Our hosts are the district governor of Kochi, the chief of police, the mayor, and the head of the local chamber of commerce, along with a few other important members of the community. Everyone was here for a good time and good food it was, particularly the brek, and their specialty, an eggplant dish with peppers. Continuing east to Ispendos, an old Seljuk humpback bridge catches our eye just as a Pepsi truck bumps its way across. Following the truck, we arrive at the best-preserved amphitheater in Turkey. Ispendos Theater was constructed in the 2nd century A.D. It was, and still is, capable of seating 20,000. Ataturk was so impressed with the theater when he saw it for the first time that he suggested it be restored for theatrical and sporting events. Behind the theater are the remains of the antique city of Ispendos. Local shepherds used the fields around the ruins of the Roman city for grazing goats and sheep. Here also local women make and sell exquisite lacework to passing tourists. The patterns, she tells us, have names: daisies, tears, birds in flight. The price ranges from $10 to $20 depending on the size. Despite the monumental gate, there is very little left of the town of Tarsus, where Mark Antony and Cleopatra fell in love, or where St. Paul was born. That city is about 15 to 20 feet below the present town. To many Turks, green plums are a springtime delicacy. Vendors are everywhere selling what I quickly discovered was a ticket to a stomach ache. Snake Castle was constructed by Crusaders in the 12th century. I first visited this castle when I was stationed with the United States Air Force back in 1967. Little has changed since then, except the climb to the castle has gotten much steeper. Castles were always built within sight of each other so signal fires could be used if an attacking army was spotted. From Snake Castle, it is only an hour and a half drive to Antakya, which at one time rivaled the glories of Rome. At the Mosaic Museum, we admire an old Roman sarcophagus and discover one of the best collections of mosaic art in the Middle East. Many of the mosaics were removed from ruins of Roman villas and reconstructed here. Peter's Church, the very first Christian church, is located on a hillside on the outskirts of town. The facade, we are told, dates back to the time of the Crusaders. Behind the facade is the cave grotto where Peter is said to have held the early masses. It was here also that the followers of Christ were first called Christian and that the first non-Jewish people were accepted into the faith. The town of Gaziantep, north of Antakya, is the pistachio capital of Turkey. It is late May, and this time of year, shepherd boys bring their sheep to the city for sale. The town boasts of having one of the best copper, brass, and tin bazaars in all of Turkey, and we can see the bazaar as a very busy place. Well, after shopping in the bazaar, we're bound to have a good appetite. Gaziantep is known for its good food. One of the best restaurants in town is Tahsin and Daughters. They're famous for their spicy chicken, beef, and lamb shish kebabs. They're also famous for their delicious meat pizza called lahmacun. Erkan Doğançak, our driver and guide, is from Antalya. He has been looking forward to a good Gaziantep pizza for days. Well, after several pizzas, it appears that Erkan is still hungry. In the park, the roasted hazelnuts are just too tempting. Surprisingly, Turkey produces approximately 70% of the world's hazelnuts. They're grown along the Black Sea coast. Aha! It is the baklava parlor where he was heading all along. Pistachio baklava is a specialty of Gaziantep. This parlor, we are told, makes one of the best. It is a sweet treat that few visitors can pass up, especially if your name is Erkan. Minced pistachio on top of the baklava adds a touch of color and makes it exceptionally tasty, as Erkan discovers. Beyond Gaziantep, traditions die hard as women are still subservient to men. Of course, don't tell her that. We have rented a local taxi designed to handle rough road to take us partway up Mount Nemrut to visit one of the most astounding archaeological sites in this part of Turkey. How they carved and brought all the statues up here is a question of much speculation. After all, the mountain is 7,000 feet high. It all happened according to archaeologists in the 1st century BC when an egotistical king by the name of Antiochus forced 20,000 of his subjects to work on the project. There are twin terraces here, containing the statues of the gods and of Antiochus. One terrace faces east, while the other faces west. From the top of Mount Nemrut, we can see a large lake in the distance. It is the backwater for Ataturk Dam on the Euphrates River. The dam is the 5th largest of its type in the world. An additional 21 dams are being constructed on the Euphrates and Tigris rivers to bring water and electricity to over 7 million acres of arid land. Şanlıurfa is in the heart of the country that will benefit from construction of the dams on the Euphrates River. The town was the birthplace of Abraham of the Old Testament. The mosque complex, the destination of many pilgrims, was constructed around his birth cave, for Abraham is an important saint to the Muslims. Legend tells us that when Abraham began destroying pagan gods, the king decided to burn him alive. God intervened, turning the fire into water and the wood into fish. The sacred pool of Abraham represents the water, and the carp represents the fish. The community of Harran, 40 minutes south of Şanlıurfa, is over 5,000 years old, making it one of the oldest continuously occupied sites in the world. The mud, beehive-shaped houses give it a feeling of deep antiquity. The people here live by farming and by smuggling, as the Syrian border is just a few miles south of the community. Genesis tells us that Terah took Abraham and Sarah, his son and daughter-in-law, from Urfa to live here about 4,000 years ago. There are no trees here, so discs of dung, once dried, are used for fire. Continuing east, we next arrive at the Tigris River and the great walled city of Diyarbakir. The walls of Diyarbakir are 3.5 miles long and totally surround the old city. They were constructed of basalt by the Romans between the 4th and 6th centuries AD. On the plaza in front of the Ulu Mosque, men sit at small tables and play cards while drinking tea and Turkish coffee, much as they have done for hundreds of years. The Ulu Mosque, built in the 11th century, is unlike most mosques in Turkey. It was built in the Arab style, which is rectangular in shape. A few blocks from the mosque, Armenian lay priest Gervo shows us his church. There are not enough Armenian Christians left in the community to merit having a full-time priest. Although centuries old, he says, their Bible has not crumbled with age because the pages have a high silk content. One of the most impressive buildings in town is the nearly 500-year-old Caravanserai. It has been recently renovated and today is a modern 5-star hotel. The doors to the rooms, however, are still the original size. And if you are 6 feet 5 inches tall like my friend Mark, it is rather difficult to talk to someone that knocks on the door. Once outside, she tells Mark that folk dancing has already begun down in the courtyard. The Seven Brothers Dance Troupe is from Diyarbakir. We are told that they perform these dances at weddings and on occasions celebrating the 4 religious fast days. That evening in the hotel restaurant, we enjoyed a traditional belly dance. As we continue east from Diyarbakir, most of the people we meet are Kurdish. The Kurdish people are especially friendly, but it is here in this beautiful land that senseless acts of terrorism by the Kurdish separatists have wrecked the economy for the local Kurdish people. Now very few tourists visit eastern Turkey. Shepherds and farmers are hard hit. Farmers must still work their fields without the benefit of modern farm equipment. The few tourists that do come to eastern Turkey will discover one of the most beautiful lakes in the world, Lake Van, a lake surrounded by snow-capped mountains. Akdamar Island, the site of a remarkable Armenian church, is 3 miles by boat from the mainland. Lake Van is 64 miles long and 5,700 feet above sea level. It was formed when a volcano erupted, blocking the lake's outlet. Today, water level is maintained by evaporation. The water cannot be used for drinking because of its high alkaline content. The Church of the Holy Cross was built in the 10th century. What is so unusual about the church is its wonderful relief carvings of Old Testament prophets and kings. It is truly a masterpiece of Armenian art. Despite Islam's prohibition of man and animals in art, it remains in such good condition because Turkish tribesmen were better horsemen than boat builders. The city of Van is located in the extreme eastern part of Turkey, approximately 1,000 miles from Istanbul. Between the city of Van and the lake is the Rock of Van, the site of a Eurasian city that flourished almost 3,000 years ago. Today, the modern city of Van is about a mile inland from the lake. It is particularly known for its carpets and kilims. The Artsoy carpet shop is one of the best. Buying a carpet in Turkey is always a fascinating experience. Proper presentation of carpets is the key to any sale. Özkan is displaying rugs and kilims made of silk and wool in various sizes. A kilim, he tells me, is a summer rug. It is much thinner than a traditional rug, but unfortunately just as expensive. As we can see, some of them are exquisite. The asking price for this kilim is $800 US. When I asked if I could buy it for less, that's when the tea arrives with lots of sugar to sweeten the deal. Then, more expensive traditional rugs are displayed as a comparison. Now we can see that the kilim is a bargain. At least that's what Özkan says. This is a beautiful rug, but the kilim, he tells me, will fit more easily in my suitcase. Off the hook for the big rug, I quickly agree. The Turkish government runs a school in Van to teach women the art of carpet weaving. Since Turkey is a land of sheep, most carpets are made from wool. Nomadic Turkish tribes introduced the art of weaving double-knotted, long-wearing carpets in the 12th century. The women have already tied threads between the horizontal bars of their loom. Now their fingers fly as they tie double knots of wool to the stretched threads according to the pattern. Outside the carpet school, a parade sponsored by Greenpeace is underway to draw attention to the need to preserve the environment. Kurdish elementary school children are marching in support. We can see that children are certainly the same around the world. Meanwhile, a local dance troupe of male and female high school students showed their support for preserving the environment by entertaining the crowd with a traditional Kurdish dance. We will now leave our dancers and continue our journey northeast to Mount Ararat of Noah's Ark fame. Rising abruptly to an elevation of 17,000 feet, Mount Ararat is one of the most stupendous sights in Turkey. The peak is so high and windy, clouds appear and disappear within seconds. The search for the Ark began in the 18th century. Now, most search parties concentrate on the opposite side of the mountain where Ark-like shapes have been spotted under the ice. On nearby Doomsday Mountain, 15 miles south of Ararat, amateur archaeologist David Fassold believes that this geological formation was once the Ark. Just outside of the nearby town of Dobiyazet is the impressive 18th century Kurdish Ishak Pasha Palace. The 366-room palace was ahead of its time. It had running water, central heating, and its own sewage disposal system. Turning north, our next destination is the Black Sea coast. As we approach the coast, there are more and more trees, and for the first time in Turkey, we see village homes constructed of wood. The name Black Sea alludes not so much to the color of the water, but to the stormy nature of the sea. It is 700 miles long, or nearly 5 times larger than Lake Superior. Yet, there are no tides on this sea. Here, on the southeastern coast, a fisherman takes advantage of the good weather today to make necessary repairs on his boat. Fishing is a way of life for many here, despite the fact that the Black Sea has been overfished for years. A local variety of anchovies, called hamsi, are predominantly caught. The boats constructed here are unlike the goulets built along the Mediterranean coast. These boats are made of steel and are built primarily for commercial use. Trabzon is one of the largest towns on the Black Sea coast, with a population of over 200,000. Cruise ships and hydrofoils now bring many new entrepreneurs across the Black Sea from the former Soviet republics to trade here. Ships bound for Istanbul and beyond are offloaded and loaded regularly in this busy port. The modern city of Trabzon has been built around a large park that once was the ancient acropolis of a city founded in the 8th century BC. Several streets connecting the park have been closed to traffic and are now a pedestrian mall. As we travel inland from Trabzon, we pass by trout streams with tumbling rapids and across old Ottoman humpback bridges. Finally, the road winds its way up and ends at the base of a mountain. Leaving the car behind, we must climb 1,000 feet up a winding path, with frequent pauses to regain our breath, before catching our first glimpse of Sumila Monastery. The Greek Orthodox monastery, dedicated to the Virgin Mary, was founded in the 6th century. The Greeks have a flair for selecting the most remote and spectacular settings to contemplate God. The monastery was abandoned in 1923 when the Turkish Republic was born. Over the years, the monastery has decayed. The lovely frescoes were used for target practice by shepherds. Today, however, the monastery is being painstakingly restored. There are many tea plantations in the valley just east of the monastery. Virtually all of Turkey's tea is grown in the lush valleys along the Black Sea coast. It is June 19th, and most of the tea has already been harvested in the valleys. Now it is time for the prized tea to be harvested in the mountains. The tea harvest is always a family project. Here, members of the Shishman family are working together. These mountain slopes receive about 10 feet of rain each year. That means, the head of the family told us, that the tea plants will grow new leaves so that they can be reharvested again in just 45 days. Once bagged, the tea leaves are sent to the tea factory where they will be dried and ground. While the harvest continues in the mountains, most of the men are enjoying a tea break down in the valley in the village coffee house. Coffee houses in Turkey are truly misnamed. Coffee is rarely consumed compared to tea. Inside, last year's seasoned mountain tea is being prepared for some serious card players. The social fabric of Turkey, even a good card game, is totally dependent on a great cup of tea. By the time we return to the Black Sea coast, the sun has begun to set and the fishermen are returning to port. The route to Ankara, the capital of Turkey, takes us away from the coast up onto the central Anatolian plateau. A dozen civilizations have risen and fallen here, but the most famous was mentioned in the Bible, the Hittites. Oğuzkale, the capital of the Hittite Empire, is 120 miles east of Ankara. Little is left today of this capital that flourished in the 13th and 14th centuries BC. The Lion Gate, however, is quite impressive. Much of the Hittite art discovered at Oğuzkale since 1905, when excavations began, can be seen today in Ankara at the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations. In addition to Hittite sculpture displayed on the grounds, inside we can also enjoy graceful Hittite figures of bulls, lions, and stags. After enjoying the antiquities of the museum, let's wander across the street to the antique shop to admire a good collection of antique copper and Turkish coffee pots. Nearby is Ataturk's mausoleum. The honor guard changes several times a day. It is composed of men from the three branches of service, the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. We are told it is an honor to be selected for this duty. The mausoleum was designed in the 1940s to capture the spirit of Anatolia, monumental, sparse, but beautiful. Many enjoy using the telescope here for a fine view of downtown Ankara. We might even catch a glimpse of Saqqara Street Mall. The mall is one of Ankara's most popular places. Many come here to meet with friends and to shop. In the 1960s, I lived in Ankara for 2 years as a member of the United States Air Force. Since that time, Ankara has become one of the most beautiful and cosmopolitan cities in Turkey. Atakule Tower is located very close to the residential area where I once lived. The tower contains offices and a restaurant at the top. Below is a modern shopping mall where many of Ankara's smart shops are located. The view from the top is magnificent. Eskişehir, meaning Old City, is one of Ankara's neighbors. The Statue of Freedom overlooks the river Promenade in the heart of town. Beyond the statue are several shops that sell meerschaum pipes. Let's go inside and see how these works of art are made. While the stone is still wet and fresh from the mines, it is soft as soap. Meerschaum is mined at several villages just east of town where the world's largest deposits are located. It is now illegal to export raw meerschaum because the city fathers wish to provide employment for the local artists. It takes our artist only a half an hour to carve the bowl of a pipe with the face of an Arab. When he is finished, the bowl is hollowed out and a hole is bored in for the pipe stem. The cost is quite reasonable. Small pipes start at about $10, while larger ones are considerably more. Some of them are truly works of art. Southeast of Eskişehir is an old crumbling caravanserai on the road to the Goreme Valley. Eons ago, 2 volcanoes erupted near here, spreading a thick layer of ash over the area, which hardened into a soft, porous stone called tufa. Over the centuries, wind, water, and sand wore away areas of tufa, carving elaborate shapes. Entire communities have been carved out of the stone, even the modern-day town of Goreme. Outside of Goreme, farmers are able to find just enough tillable land to support their families. Boulders of hard stone caught in the tufa protected the softer stone directly underneath them from erosion. The resulting formations look like a field of rock mushrooms. When the early Christians arrived in the Goreme Valley, they quickly discovered that homes and churches could be carved out of the soft stone. The Bible refers to this region as Cappadocia. Several interesting churches are located in the Goreme National Park. A collapsed wall, however, brightens the interior of one of the churches, and making it easier for us to admire the lovely frescoes. As we leave the Goreme Valley for the town of Avanos, I discover that some means of transportation have not changed since I lived in Turkey during the 1960s. The town of Avanos is famous for its pottery. The monument is made from the same red clay that the local potters use, taken from the Red River that flows near town. One of the best potters in town, we are told, is a man by the name of Bülent. His studio is close to the center of town. Mustafa told us that he would like to become a potter just like his father. When the pot is finished, Bülent tells us, it will be cured in the sun on the roof for 15 days and then placed in an oven for 8 hours at about 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. When the pottery has been fired, it is then stored in several rooms behind the studio that have been carved out of the tufa stone. These rooms are identical to those found in the vast underground cities carved near here by the early Christians. It is Mustafa's responsibility to store the smaller pieces of pottery here. It is about a 2-hour drive to another of my favorite towns in Turkey, the town of Konya. The tram in the heart of town circles a park which was the site of a Hittite community 4,000 years ago. In the 13th century, a great Seljuk palace was built here. A fragment of that palace, now protected with a roof, is all that remains. The park is one of the most charming aspects of Konya. For children, it is a wonderful place to come for balloons and a drive in a miniature car. Well, there's a first time for everything. I guess she doesn't quite know what to do next. After a careful briefing, however, she is ready. But to be safe, maybe she should have a guide. Fortunately for one pedestrian, her guide warns him away just in time. The mother of another young driver seems more trusting. Oops! Her daughter is having lots of fun, but seems to have no idea what a steering wheel does. Konya has a long tradition of having excellent goldsmiths. The entrance to the Gold Bazaar looks like the entrance to a subway station. The plush bazaar is located beneath a plaza and contains more than 30 gold shops. Prices do vary from shop to shop depending how good one is at bargaining. What most people come to Konya to see is the tomb and museum of the mystic Islamic poet Mevlana, whose teachings inspired the founding of the Whirling Dervishes. The tomb was completed 1 year after Mevlana's death in the 13th century. It was an architectural masterpiece unequaled at the time. In the courtyard of the complex, many stop and enjoy a cup of holy water. The Tomb and Museum are the second most popular tourist attractions in Turkey, just after Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. Inside the tomb is the crypt of Mevlana with its symbolic turban. The other crypts with turbans belong to his close followers. It is in this building, every December 17th, that the Whirling Dervishes perform to celebrate Mevlana's wedding night with God. He died on that day in 1273. Outside, the Whirling Dervishes of Konya are performing this ceremony for us. It is called the Dance of the Aegean Spirit, an expression of love and prayer. The group does more than 70 programs a year inside and outside of Turkey. Training starts at the age of 10 for those who wish to become a dervish. They then must lead the exemplary life of a mystic. Come, come, again and again, wrote Mevlana. Come, be you unbeliever, idolater, or worshipper of fire. Our hearth is not the threshold of despair. If you have broken your resolve 100 times, come again. Mevlana's philosophy of tolerance and hospitality is that of modern-day Turkey. Yes, Turkey is a land of great hospitality, and for us, it is truly a land where East meets West. I have enjoyed taking you with me on a journey through time in Turkey.